Hello and welcome to this week's treasure hunt, and we're in East Granby and it's all about, no, not gardening, but things you find and dig up. But before we meet this week's collector, let's take a look back to when they found out a little bit more about something they found right here at a recent antiques fair.
This tells a great story about early Connecticut history. This was likely made in Waterbury, which was the Brass City, probably circa 1830s, 1850s. This button is most interesting. This is a Washington inaugural button from the 1780s. These were worn during Washington's inauguration. They had parades throughout the country when he was first elected. This originally had a silver wash over it. Most of it's gone away. It had a shank on the back where you'd attach it to your coat, and that's broken off. But even still, a great piece of history, very collectible today.
Well, that's what they found out about those items, but what else have they dug up that is now hiding in the house? We're joining us is Treasure Hunt's resident appraiser Linda Stam from Winter Associates here in Connecticut. Linda, as ever, lovely to see you. Coins, artifacts, Native American stuff. This has got all the makings of a potentially very interesting treasure hunt.
It sounds like I'm going to have a lot of fun digging around in this household, and I'll see what I can unearth for myself.
The other thing, of course, is this stuff was just all under people's feet.
I think the exciting thing is that maybe after this show, when our watchers go out in the field, they'll think about what might be under their feet.
Very true. Linda, as usual, happy hunting. It's going to be an interesting one. Let's see what Linda unearths a little bit later. But now, of course, it's time to meet today's collector. Burton, ever so many thanks for letting us come and visit you.
My pleasure.
You are a passionate collector. You go out, you dig things up. Where did you get your passion for that from?
When I was growing up, and I grew up locally in the East Granby area, and I was always outside lifting over rocks, and one day I found an old bottle site, and me and some relatives were finding these old bottles, and maybe 20 years down the road, my brother called up and said, "Bert, I'd like to come visit you. Is there any chance we could go old bottle hunting?" Now this is 20 years since I stopped doing it. I'm thinking, where am I going to bring this guy? So I showed him a couple places and talked to some farmers, and we went out. And the first day I wasn't feeling it, but the second day I started to get an interest again.
Every now and again, people will find things of high value. But at the end of the day, is that what it's about for you?
No. In fact, I've given away most of my coins. What I value most, Brian, and this probably sounds corny, but I take a look at a site in its entirety and I try to envision what life was like back in, say, the mid-1700s. And you find something like a pair of scissors and a thimble, and next to it a musket ball. And it kind of puts things in perspective. So some of the things that I treasure the most really don't have much value.
So earlier, of course, we sent Linda on her mission. She is now back. Some glassware, some pottery. Come on then, Linda, tell us a story.
Well, Burton's the one who really had some very fascinating stories. He was telling me where he discovered this wonderful bottle, actually made in the Philadelphia Glass Works, but with Hartford, Connecticut on the side. I would say if this thing was to be found on the market, it's going to be in the hundreds of dollars. I would say probably in that $300 to $500 range.
Wow.
Then we also have something that he dug up on eBay that's from quite far afield. This is a bottle that is actually ancient Roman glass. And what's fascinating about ancient Roman glass is the effect it had on Louis Comfort Tiffany. Oh. This beautiful iridescence truly appealed to him, and he wanted to be able to recreate it. He experimented time and time again, and now collectors of Tiffany glass recognize this wonderful iridescence in the Tiffany Favrile glass that he is so famous for. It seems almost impossible that something could have existed since ancient Roman times, but they are not so extraordinarily rare that a beginning collector couldn't afford something like this, again in the hundreds of dollars.
Finally, we've got some lovely bits of pottery here. Let's quickly talk about those.
Burton's digs have brought in things used in the United States from all over the world, probably made right here in Connecticut, a little remnant of a stoneware jug. But we have in the center here all pieces that look like they're of English origins. This looks like it was probably imported from China on the far side there. And then this little selection of coins includes one from Spain. So again, all dug in Connecticut, but from all over the world.
The fascinating thing about Burton is his passion for collecting, which he's had from a very young age. And of course, he has dug up many things from the local area, from glassware to pottery, to finding coins and artefacts that have found their way here from the four corners of the planet. But to him, they have just as much value, even though they have no real monetary value themselves. But of course, that does then beg the question, is that the real nature of a real collector? In East Granby, for Treasure Hunt, I'm Brian Scott Smith.